humor consumers to the Life Happens, Laugh Anyway podcast. I'm comedian Tracy DeGraaf.
And I'm Cathrine, co-host and bestie.
Welcome to the Pod Lab, Cathrine.
Thank you. I like the rearranging that you've done in here.
I
you and
know.
Ron Muffin.
Actually, I did it all by myself.
Oh,
I did.
Ooh.
I know. I was going to wait for him to help me, and then I was like, oh, he was busy doing other things.
Yeah.
You know, he and Kenny brought in the couch.
Yes, I was going to say that.
Well, let me just update our listeners in case because obviously you can't see us yet because we have not added video yet, but it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
We keep saying that. Catherine's like, Anyway, I wanted to have a little love seat in here or some way, something with a fold-up sleeping arrangement. You know, like it's not an actual bed that's in there, but it's like a big foam thing.
Yeah.
So I bought a chair and a half.
Mm-hmm.
It's all combined. It's one,
Right.
Like it's like a little mini couch.
Yeah.
It's a mini love seat.
It's a cuddle couch.
Yeah. Or if I get real fat, I got a place to sit.
Yeah.
Or should I say fatter?
It looks cozy.
It's
And
perfect.
Now you've got a spare spot if you have a guest, right? One of
Yeah.
your boys,
Yeah.
something like that.
Right.
Or someone like that.
Right.
Yeah. And it's kind of useful. We might record over there. We'll see how that goes, right?
Yeah, we're going to try it. We're going to get some video stuff going. So hang tight. Anyway, all that happened this weekend. So our two husbands, Muffin and Pooh, they brought the chair and a half in here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I arranged the room the way I wanted it.
You know what I like about
What?
this?
What do you like?
I just now thought of before when we were over, when this table that we sit at was on the other side there, if anyone opened the door, it would bang basically right into me.
Right.
And I would, not know who's on the other side. It was kind of creepy for me.
This is better.
Not that you have strangers in the house, but this is nice because, well, I'm not going to be hit by the door.
True.
And two, I have a perfect view now of when someone opens the door.
Yeah. And the last time we recorded, remember Adam opened the door.
Did.
He came in. All right. Speaking of the last time we recorded, we received a nice little email from one of our listeners who has now crossed over.
Yes.
She has crossed over from humor consumer to humor contributor.
Yeah. It was
And
really encouraging.
I know.
It was
And
exciting.
her name is Pat. And I did ask her for her permission to read her email on the air, if you want to call this air. And so I'm going to read this email to you all. This is from Pat. We don't know Pat. She's never met us. I don't even know where she's from.
I know.
But
I'm so curious.
I know a few episodes ago, I can't remember when it was, we had said something like, if somebody sponsors us that we don't know, wouldn't that be exciting?
Yeah, we did
And it
say
is.
that, right.
We do have sponsors. So let me just explain our sponsorship program real briefly. Then I'm going to read this email from Pat. We have sponsors. Most of them are our friends and family. Okay. People that know us. They've met us. They've been at one of my shows or they go to church with us or whatever. And it's $5 a month typically is what people give. You can give a recurring gift of $5 a month, or you can sponsor us with a one-time gift of any amount. You choose, right? So sometimes people will just give us $100 or they'll give us $60 or $50 or $20, whatever they want to give. Well, anyway, I had said, wouldn't it be great to get somebody that we don't know? And we do have, I think, a couple.
We have a couple, maybe three.
Yeah. And then here comes Pat. So Pat sent us this email. And she says, "Hi, Tracy. I am honored that I am able to sponsor your podcast." She's honored to be able to sponsor.
She
Thank
sounds
you,
so
Pat.
sweet.
I know. And then she put a little like flower, also like
emoji thing.
I love the emojis, everybody. So if you send me an email, please include emojis because I love them. I'm an over emoji user myself.
Are you? I
Little
wouldn't say
bit.
over.
Okay, good. Because I don't care.
Yeah.
Then she says, "You are most welcome," because I had thanked her for her sponsorship.
Right.
And I had also asked her, how did you find us? And what motivated you to sponsor us? Because
Right.
I thought if I could answer those two questions, we could actually have a job here, right? We could find a way to have a job. And then Pat says, "I honestly don't know how I found you. I use Spotify for my podcasts, and I believe through a search I came upon it. I'm very glad I did." Exclamation point.
Yeah, it's
Punctuation. "I have been listening now for a couple of months and plan to keep doing so." Good. "I wanted to sponsor you and Cathrine since I have listened for a bit now. I truly enjoy the podcast. The two of you complement each other online very well. I enjoy learning new things. And then she puts in parentheses.
So do we, Pat.
Yeah, we do. We get into these deep dives with the research and we're like, wow. And then she puts in like these little, what do they call that?
Hugs.
The parentheses or whatever.
Yeah, parenthesis hugs.
Yeah. She says, even how to handle hemorrhoids, for goodness sake. Bless the Lord. This is not an issue for me.
Yeah.
But the episode was informative and funny as well.
Awesome.
I'm
so glad.
I know. And I'm glad
you just don't know. We don't know who we reach or anything.
We have no clue.
No.
And Cathrine and I, as we talked about the hemorrhoid episode, I said, I'm sharing it because I am a sufferer and I have compassion on those other sufferers.
Yeah.
We're going to get it out there. Anyway, then she says, and I usually end up laughing and smiling at several points while listening to an episode.
Yay.
I really hope that there are other listeners that can hear my voice right now who laugh and smile with us.
Yeah, me too.
I really do. And I hope that you will become a sponsor. Gee, what are you waiting for?
That makes us laugh and smile.
It only took Pat a couple months. How long have you been listening? Okay, then she says, let's see, laugh and smiling at several points. It's real life, too. Phone calls come in from your families and friends, and they are answered right during the podcast. I feel almost like I'm right there with you during the conversation.
A lot of people say that.
They do, and I love that because it means we're real.
Yeah. Like, it's funny because many times I will edit it out.
Right.
Or sometimes, I should say, and other times, just leave it.
Okay, so I was reading Pat's email to Ron when we were running an errand in the car. Like, you got to hear this email. So I'm reading it to Ron. And he goes, you guys answer the phone when you're on the podcast? I go, yeah, duh.
Sometimes, yeah.
I said, our boys call me so infrequently. If they call, if I'm answering.
Right.
Because I gotta know, is everything okay?
Yeah.
Why are you calling me? And then I told Ron, I said, usually, we just say answer it and see what's going on, and then we'll edit it out later, and we never do.
Right.
Because,
or partial.
Yeah, because it's real life. We're just out here living life.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, well, Pat likes it. So, and she decided to sponsor us. Okay. A recent episode about grandparents, even though neither of you are, was spot on and very funny. I am a grandma of 2 and I have 4 grand doggies.
Aw.
So the episode hit both of those wonderful points. Emoji, smiley face. I also truly appreciate your calls to action and the Bible verses. Thank you for honoring, blessing our Lord as you do, which in turn honors and blesses your listeners. Keep doing what you are, and thank you for what you both do. I wish both of you all the best.
Well, thank you, Pat. We wish you the best as well.
We do. And then she signs off. I will close as the two of you do. I am still Pat.
Right.
And I will be listening.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so that was really fun. And Pat signed up to give us $5 a month. So we just really appreciate that. And, as we grow, we will hopefully, stay here, stay with you all.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into the episode.
Yeah.
Episode 207. Today, friends, we are talking about a documentary. We haven't done one in a while. And this one is called Holy Hell. And it is a doozy.
It's an appropriate name for it.
Yeah, a very appropriate name for it. We have a couple of takeaways that if you stick with us through the duration, you should get this out of it. If you don't, that's not on me. Just pay attention. We're going to give you a summary of the documentary, also some mind-blowing details, and then finally, understanding groupthink and how it works.
Yeah.
Right? As always, we have a little scripture and a call to action at the end. So what say you, Cathrine, about Holy Hell?
Yeah, it was disturbing.
Very disturbing.
Yes. And it is filmed by this man, Will Allen is his name. And ever since he was a little kid, he had wanted to, be a filmmaker. So he graduated college. And when he came home from college, I think he was about 22 by the time he graduated.
Mm-hmm.
He also came out. Now, this was 1985. Around that time. And he also had told his family that he was that he was gay.
Okay.
So his mom, didn't say his dad, but his mom had kicked him out of the home. She just didn't, I read in an article that this is not said in the documentary, that she just didn't know how to handle that at the time. It was just.
And if you think about the 80s, you know, well, it was a rough time for gay people. I mean, the AIDS situation was really rough. It was just kind of a bad time.
Yeah. So he was soul searching.
Yeah.
And he was, I jotted down here some of the things that he had said. He wanted to know truth about the mystery of the universe. And he was just looking for spiritual enlightenment, looking for answers, and also kind of trying to just figure himself out.
Yeah.
And his sister had already belonged to this group. And it was called the, what did I write? Oh, the Buddha Field group. And so he loved it immediately because it was not cult-like. In fact, that was like their thing about it. So they wanted to, these people, about 120 to 200-ish, that it was just fun, and it was like these spiritual experiences. And I didn't really realize this during the documentary. These things only happen on the weekends.
Okay.
So, because in the documentary, they say that they lived together 24/7, but that was, yes, they did have apartments, and they paid their own rent. They didn't belong in a cult-like atmosphere, but the ones that were single, they did live together, but they had jobs. Most of them were very smart. They had degrees, and they paid their rent, like I said. And anyway, so I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah,
but this was a weekend mostly
and
thing.
Weren't they proud of the fact that they would say, we're not a cult because we're not a cult? We're this other thing, which is not a cult.
We have outside lives. We go to work. We, they contribute to society in whatever way. So
yeah, what a genius idea of hiding in plain sight, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah. So it started out nice, like I said, and they believed that they were in this for spiritual growth, and their leader.
Oh boy, this guy.
Okay. They followed a leader with guyliner, lots of it.
Yeah.
And a Speedo, like all the time. So this man, have you ever heard of guyliner?
Just now. That's the first time I've heard it, but I love it. And yeah, what was his name? His name was Michel.
Michel, but his original name was, I wrote it down here. It was Jaime Gomez. And then his family was from Venezuela. And his family moved here, he became Michel Rostan. Not Michel or anything, just Michel. And then he later was Andreas, and later Rajki. But anyway, we'll get to that. So as time went on, Michel got wackier, and because it went from this, fun and spiritual, free, this and that. People were finding themselves and loving on each other, all that stuff, frolicking around in the water, in the river, and things like that. But then it turned to adoring Michel.
Yeah.
And it got weird.
Yeah, and it was almost like he was luring them in. Like it started out with one premise, and it ended with a completely different premise, which included him getting all kinds of massages and other things.
Yeah, and we learned, and we saw it coming. I mean, we knew that he was sexually abusing the boy men in the group.
Right.
And then toward the end, an email of a former member was sent out to the whole group exposing Michel and telling the truth about what was really going on. Now, the boy men that received this email, they had no idea knew that they were being abused, but they kind of denied it even to themselves. They were in denial.
Right.
But they didn't know at all that others were being molested as well.
I wonder if that's a play in the playbook of abusers as well.
Oh, for sure.
And that's just terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. Because, of course that Michelle is going to say, well, he did say, don't tell anyone else. It's just you.
Yeah.
Because if they all start talking, it's going to happen exactly what happened. The email went out.
Right.
And then
he was exposed.
Then they were disbanded.
Even more so than he actually was.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's like the summary, but we'll talk about some of the details.
And of course, this was all happening in nice climates. I mean, he
California.
was in Los Angeles area?
No, it was West Hollywood, whatever that. Yeah, West Hollywood.
Los Angeles.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so nice climate, beautiful people, and like everybody was gorgeous. All the women were beautiful, all the men were beautiful.
Especially second time around.
Yeah.
So they were in California, like we said, and then in 1993, Waco happened about 100 miles north of them.
Well, that was in Texas.
They had moved to Texas before. Oh, you know what? That's right. They moved to Texas because there was an outside man that really thought one of the gals in the group was beautiful. But
that's right. I remember that now.
He wasn't allowed to be around her, and so he calls the cult network thingamajig, which I never knew existed.
I didn't either.
What was it called?
I don't remember, but it was
Association.
It was like the cult police came.
Exactly. But so what's his name? Michelle gets paranoid. He packs up and just leaves these people. And by the way, these people regularly would tell Michelle that they loved him, that they're so thankful for him. And from the outside, that sounds like, how can they not know that this was wrong? But he made them feel like they really were just benefiting from him.
Right.
He had these things called the knowing sessions.
Right.
Now, those were not just on weekends. That people would have to take time off of work for those because it lasted for a few days. They'd go out in the woods and the water, and only a few would be selected. And that is a way to get people to keep coming back so that they could be selected. So he would only select a few. And And it was their belief, because he made them believe, that they would have this realization of God himself, that they would see and taste him. Those are their words.
Okay. I have to interject here.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the part in the film where they all claimed that they saw colors? And
yes. Like an LSD
Did he
moment.
give them drugs?
No, they said that's another thing, was they didn't do any drugs. In fact, they boasted about their clean living. That he was a narcissist. He wanted everybody to look good and to be fit and to have clean eating. They didn't have gluten.
Had to dance. He was a ballerina.
I was going to get to that. Yeah. No gluten, no alcohol.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that made me wonder, like, what's going on here? How could he make them see colors
again,
and such?
I think it's part of that group thinking.
Okay.
I think that it's a well, I know that group think is a phenomenon. And he was, so that was called what he called Shakti. And I don't know if that's like a real thing or not, but it's what they called it. And he would touch their heads, and everyone that was interviewed said that they could feel and see like colors, like you said, and feel his energy go from his body to theirs. And it was a beautiful experience. They all said it.
Yeah.
In fact, the filmmaker said there's no doubt that that's what happened. But that wasn't part of the knowing thing. That was the Shakti thing, because they had the Shakti, and then they had cleansing. And I forget, the cleansing was when the counseling that these members would go in by themselves.
Yeah.
And he would talk. He was a hypnotist too, so he would talk to them. And
gosh.
Yeah. And have them go back into their childhood and figure out what it was that they, I don't know, whatever their issues were. But the knowing was like this week-long retreat thing where, like I said, they would just get to experience God, but through him, of course, only through him.
The other thing that he did was he required all of the followers to be celibate.
Yes.
Even though he was abusing them.
Yes. So he would constantly make sure that everybody looked good. And he was in a Speedo all the time. And there was all this sexual tension. These kids were in their 20s.
Yeah.
Or they're not kids, but you know what I mean.
Well, they
were
are.
youths.
They were young adults that were looking for purpose in life.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out where am I going? Where's my path as an adult?
And he had this one man, Chris, forcibly do ballet lessons with a beautiful ballet gal.
Yeah.
I forget her name now.
Sophia. Yeah.
But told him, they can't have sex. In fact, here's the real sad part. People were having sex, and some got pregnant, and he would make them have abortions. So it wasn't just the one that we saw in the documentary. There were others. There were, in all the 22 years that this group existed together, not one baby was ever born.
Okay, I'm looking at pictures of him.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have got to
creepy.
Google it and look at his pictures.
Yeah.
I mean, he is just a creepy looking guy. And then remember at the beginning, they talked about the man who made him salad, and he made him fruit salad.
Julian.
And he created these beautiful artistic, they were pieces of art.
He did the Last Supper.
Yes, I'm looking at it right
fruit.
Now. It's gorgeous.
Yes. And because this Julian felt that it was the only thing he could contribute to, they called him the master.
Yeah.
And then one of the other disciples that was very close to the master, this Michelle, Julian caught him putting the fruit into a blender. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And he was upset to learn that it didn't mean a thing to Michelle.
Yeah, he was making a smoothie out of his artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what was I saying before? Oh, the knowing and all of that stuff. And then we went into the sex, and it was confusing for these young people because they were constantly, without a lot of their clothes.
Yeah. And fair warning to anybody that would watch this documentary.
Yeah.
Just know that there is some pretty disturbing footage of this guy was also involved in making pornography movies or whatever. So
With men.
Yeah. So they showed some of that. It was not that much, but I just want to give a fair warning of that.
Yeah.
And he was in the ballet. He was he was a good ballet dancer. You could see him flipping around, whatever they did.
Well, he was out of work. Okay, I love how the one sister says.
Yeah.
She's like, basically, she says, I'm not going to refer to him anything other than what he was, an out of work
actor.
Out of work actor who got the role of a lifetime doing what he was doing. Because, so there's more to it. Yes, he would have these ballet things and he would force everybody to do it. But also, they would eventually build a theater.
Yes, they did.
Okay. Not just a makeshift like you would see in the woods. We're talking a grand theater. Because again, a lot of these people, they had really good jobs. And I forget which one it was, but he was like the contractor or something of this theater. And Julian would get all mad about the way it looked. They'd have to tear it down, redo it. They would practice these plays for a year. They would get their fabrics and costumes. Well, some of them were made there, but they get the fabrics imported.
Elaborate.
Big deal. But guess who their audience was?
Themselves.
They would perform at one time. To themselves.
I know.
That's it. And you have to see some of the clips of this Michelle. I think he's creepier than Charlie Manson. He is so creepy to me. I mean, I just want to gag.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. And I think that it's pretty low as a human being to take advantage of others like that.
Oh, absolutely.
First of all, it's illegal to do these things, or it should be illegal to do these things.
Morally,
he's bankrupt. Yes, he is morally bankrupt. He has no conscience, I'm sure.
But to see him dress up as kind of like a peacock angel and in drag too, and yet that's okay. So that's when one of his biggest supporters, this woman they had their names changed too, by the way. And then they still didn't think they were in a cult, even though Michelle wanted them to change their names. I forget her name. But anyway.
The sister?
No, It was the woman that seemed really, really bright. They all were, but started with an R.
Okay.
She funded the home in Texas for him, the down payment. Now, years later, she did get that money back. But when they moved to Texas and they had that apiary, however you say it, and all that stuff, she financed that, put the money down. But that's when she was like, when did it become adoring him? And she was like, what the?
Yeah.
Bleep?
Yeah. Radia, was that her?
Yes.
Yeah.
Radia. That's it. I don't even know what her real name originally was, but
how about the mom who had 3 kids involved in this thing?
Yes.
So I loved her. I loved her. I mean, she was the mom of the documentarian, or however they say that. She was Will's mom.
Yes.
And Will's 2 sisters. And she was the one who kind of freaked out in the 80s and got into the argument or whatever with Will, the conflict, and out he goes, right? But when she found out that her 3 kids were in there and they all wanted her to call them by whatever name this Michelle gave them.
Yeah, I love what she says.
She said, no, your father and I named you the names that we named you. We will call you those names.
That's right. Yeah.
I loved her in that moment.
And she did say they were welcome back home at any time.
Yeah.
And it took a very long time, but they did come back. And the oldest daughter, Amy, who was in the cult the longest, and her name was with the cult Emiliano, which, by the way, I didn't tell you this.
Yeah.
I always call my Emily, like ever since she was a baby, I would just be, singing along in the house, and I call her Emiliano. Just for fun, like just a fond nickname. Emiliano, I'll say that. But anyway, so when I think of that, but she now takes care of their parents. And I think that I got the impression that Will does too when he can, but I don't think he lives in Texas anymore. And the middle sister.
Stala.
Yes. She was funny.
Yeah, she was.
She was the one that said, I'm just going to call him from what he is, an out of work actor on the role of a lifetime. Right. She said something about, I don't know how it ended up being where you lick his feet. Like I don't think that happened, but it was like a remark she made. You could tell she's got a slight.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I can't imagine being the mother of 3 grown kids who are all involved in something like this. That would be so painful. And Will was involved for 22 years. Yeah. And so his sisters were involved for longer. The one sister
was, yeah.
So really, really disturbing.
Well, and other people are interviewed as well. And this one woman, Vera, she was in tears saying, because she was very close to her dad. And Michelle had told them they have to detach from their families in order to receive spiritual, enlightenment.
Okay.
And so her dad was sick, and she had booked her flight out there, cried, and ended up canceling because the power of, I guess, groupthink, you could say, is what kept her there.
And, that's heartbreaking.
I know.
And I'm going to just say it. If anybody is listening to us and they are estranged from loved ones because of some kind of religious group, please think.
Yeah.
Please think about what that's saying to you.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if our listeners are in cults, but just in case, don't do it.
Yeah. Well, and, a few of them did say that their intuition, like they felt like it was wrong, but they didn't listen to that part of their gifts from God, I'll just say.
And, you and I believe from the Christian perspective that we are all built with like a God desire to know God. Mm-hmm. God created us in his image with that. They used to call it like a God-shaped void. That's what I grew up as a young Christian learning about this God-shaped void. It's almost like the inner portion of each person that just wants to have that connection with God.
Yeah.
But I gotta tell you, it is not as hard as Michelle.
Right.
Makes it out to
It's
be.
so simple.
Yes.
God is the way, the truth, and the life. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no like special sessions of the knowing.
Nope.
There's none of that.
There's no lights and whistles and
there's
puppy dogs
no,
and rainbows.
Like you don't have to have. No, I'm not even going to say what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it just saddens me to see that somebody would have the audacity to play God like that. Because that's really what a cult is doing.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, and I'm not a cult expert, but I think the cult police should be a real thing. Like, they should go after these people. You and I, did we watch the Scientology thing together?
No, I didn't.
I got into it big time. This was many years ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
I got into it because Leah Remini, I love her.
Mm-hmm.
I love her from King of Queens.
Yeah.
And then I heard that she had left this cult, and I was like, what cult? And so I did a deep dive, and she put on this documentary, which was so well done.
Mm-hmm.
And she's smart.
Yeah.
She's intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
But she got wrapped up into this cult, but she was in it because her mom brought her into it when she was a child.
Yeah.
Anyway, all that to say, in my opinion, my non-expert opinion, I think that these cult leaders put themselves in the place of God.
Well, they absolutely do.
And so obviously they have a God complex or whatever that is, and they're nuts.
Yeah, that Michelle, his last name that I know of was Rachi or something, which means God King.
Oh.
And remember that throne? Here's another thing. I hate to, I'm not making fun of the group because who knows if I were ever, I don't know, lured into something like that. But they didn't think they were in like this cult, but yet someone had to grab whenever they were outside or, anything, this Michelle had a throne chair. And so they had to get the chair and carry him in it sometimes.
Unbelievable that he would put himself in that position.
Oh, well, it's just like the devil.
Yeah.
I mean, he thought that he could be like God, right?
What's painful to me?
Not new.
It's painful to me to see the tears that these people have after they're out. Yeah. And they've been out for a long time, but they were in for a very long time.
Well, in that Chris, do you remember? Chris was the one. I mean, he seemed so intelligent and normal.
Oh, yes. The one that was in love with the ballerina. And Michelle said, no.
He speaks around the country about cult awareness.
Good.
Yeah. Or actually religion awareness, something like that. He speaks around the world. And he choked up. So my point is, he talks about this all the time. And yet he was, he got all choked up in the interview.
I think there's a lot of pain there. It's deep rooted. There are lost years. There are lost relationships, obviously, with people on the outside of that cult.
Well, they were violated.
Oh.
And when you're violated, that's so deep. That's so deep.
The one guy, Felipe, I don't know how you say it, but he said, I think it was him, who said it wasn't all negative. Like when he looks back at it, he sees the relationships that were built within the organization. And now that these people are out, they're kind of commiserating with each other and, they were hugging each other and having some kind of, I don't know, like talk about it. Anyway, he said something about being grateful for just all of he's thanking for, or grateful for, I don't know if he's thanking God or I don't know what his religious affiliation is now, but he expressed some sort of gratitude for the challenge that happened, even though through tears.
Yeah.
He said, it's made me who I am today. And you've got to give him props for that because that's taking ashes, and trying to make something into it, which is your only choice, I think, at that point.
Yeah, he was definitely recognizing what it was. Yeah.
Oh.
And I read that there's this man, this Michelle, is still doing this in Hawaii, even though he's been exposed and the filmmaker, Will, went to kind of try to catch him on camera with a brand new group. And that Michelle is smart. He did not, because the camera's hidden in like a button or something in his shirt. And when Will had said to him, so you being good, a good boy? And he said, well, Always good. You know, and
Yeah.
he didn't take the bait, whatever
Right.
it was.
He was probably trying to get him to confess
he
to abuse.
He was. But all that to say, when this documentary aired out in Hawaii, the new group had been warned by the old group, the Buddha Field group, and they got into, actually some of the members did stay, not many, but some did stay, and they got into an argument up on the preview for this documentary because the new group is saying he's not at all like what you're saying. And well, you know, he's got to be near 80.
Wow.
He's got to be late 70s or something like that. I couldn't find his age, but just knowing how young he was in, did we say Rosemary's Baby? Just a quick shot.
Yeah. He stood there and turned and looked.
Yeah,
he didn't even have a line.
Yeah.
Accountability, though, will come for him.
Oh, yeah.
Justice will happen.
Yeah.
He's not going to get, anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered the summary of the documentary. We've covered some of the mind-blowing details. Are you ready to dive into groupthink?
Yeah.
Tell me, Cathrine.
Groupthink is a phenomenon that occurs when a group of well-intentioned people makes irrational or non-optimal decisions, basically bad decisions.
Yeah.
Spurred by the urge to conform or the belief that dissent is impossible. They just feel like they can't go the other way, The problematic or premature consensus that is characterized of groupthink may be fueled by a particular agenda, or it may be due to group members valuing harmony and coherence above critical thought. And when you think about that, like some of the things that were said by the people that were interviewed in the documentary were like, even though some things didn't make sense, the benefits outweighed the craziness.
Yes, Cathrine, because they believed.
Well, yeah.
The bottom line is belief. If you don't have belief, then you can't get there. But if you have belief, that same thing happened with the Scientology thing, because remember them, they had cans, and if you held the cans, it was almost like truth serum.
I did not know that.
There were these cans. It was like a lie detector system, okay? And you would hold on to these metal cans, and it would send some kind of like waves or something to this machine that would tell if you're lying or not.
Oh my gosh.
So,
what? Well, that's also what this Michelle said to them. Like, if they were going to be chosen to do the knowing, he's like, I'll know if you're thinking, because they weren't supposed to think.
Oh,
remember?
I'll know if you're not thinking.
You know how the phrase "out of your mind"?
Yeah,
they were not supposed to be in their mind.
Oh boy!
And this Michelle said, I'll know if you're in your mind. Well, duh. Everybody thinks.
Right. Okay. But here's what I was going to try to make this correlation between these two groups is that people that are in a cult are true believers. They truly believe that these cans are, what they are, or whatever the leader says, they believe it. Because we're looking at it from the outside like, how can you believe that? But they already believe it. So whatever the process was to take them from, I'm not a believer, and it could have been quite innocent. I just want some enlightenment. I want to know God. I want to know myself better. And then pretty soon you're into this enlightenment thing.
It happens because of grooming. It starts out the way it starts out.
Yeah.
And it's grooming. And those like narcissistic, they're always narcissists, the leaders of these things.
Yeah.
And that's how it happens. It says here, what causes groupthink?
Yeah.
Groups that prioritize their group identity and behave coldly toward outsiders may be more likely to fall victim to groupthink. Well, obviously, because they don't want to be that, right? They don't want to be an outcast. They don't want to be criticized or,
I think that a lot of cults will use that as a threat. If you step outside of this cult, and you leave, then we're all gonna, shun you or ostracize you or whatever.
Well, and in this case, this Michelle, he had said, if you leave, you won't be under the graces of me.
Yeah.
He's like, you're not going to be under my protection.
And once he's got them in Hawaii, it's not that easy to leave. I mean,
I guess.
If he's collecting their money in some way, somehow, how are you going to leave Hawaii?
That's another thing. It's the only money they talk about were these $50 sessions, the cleansing.
Right.
But they happened every week. And that's when he was abusing. But
yeah, that was that Chris who talked about that with a lot of emotion, where he was a young man paying $50 to have this quote unquote counseling session in which he was abused.
Yeah. And I mean, not that it shouldn't matter. He's heterosexual today too. And it's, gosh, how do I want to say this? It's pointed out in the article too, the pain. It's just as painful for, I'm going to edit that out.
To be abused. No, I get it.
It's abuse.
You don't have to edit that out. I mean, it's abuse either way.
It is.
Whether you're gay or straight.
Absolutely.
It is 100% abuse.
Right.
And the painful effect of abuse is the painful effect of abuse regardless.
Yeah. I can't even remember what my point was. I know.
Well, you're just pointing out that regardless of, whether they consider themselves to be gay or straight, they still have.
It just, right. I did have a point.
Incredibly sad. Okay. Anything else about groupthink?
No. I mean, no. That's the base, the short end of it.
Yeah, just be careful, friends. Okay, if anybody's in Hawaii listening to us and you see some guy out there looks like he's 80 years old in a Speedo, run. Just run.
Yeah. Oh, and the facelifts, we forgot to mention that they had to have plastic surgery because he wanted everybody to be beautiful, but he would get them, but he would make them get them first to make sure that it worked out okay.
Yeah,
before
guinea pigs.
Oh my gosh.
What a piece of work.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was holy hell, my friends. Mm-hmm. It was like a train wreck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was kind of hard to watch at certain points, but I think we need to be mindful of these things in these groups and be prayerful.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of that, let's go into our scripture. Yeah. Couple of scriptures for you today, friends. Jeremiah 29:13, and common, familiar verse. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. This is God and God alone.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that, Cathrine, that everybody has inside of them a desire to know God.
Mm-hmm.
And these people, unfortunately, met up with this guy who intervened in that way. But I would hope that they could find the real God.
I hope so, too. I really do.
The other scripture we have for you today is Psalm 27, verse 4. It says, "One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and seek him in his temple."
Seek him?
That's the way to do it, my friends, is to seek the Lord and to seek him in his temple. The other thing that I thought about spiritually wise is just how God is a jealous God. Mm-hmm. And the first commandment is that you shall not have any other gods before me.
Right.
And this Michelle tried to put himself in that position. Yeah. And that's the wrong position for him to even desire to be in. And it is certainly the wrong position for him to try to lead others to be in.
Right.
So good luck with that one, Michelle.
Yeah.
Okay, our call to action today, friends, is to seek only God through Jesus, who is the way, the truth, and the life, and know that there's freedom in him and there's peace in him.
There is. And I feel so bad because that's what those people were looking for. Yeah. They were looking for spiritual enlightenment. Yeah. They wanted to know, that's their words. They wanted to know God, to see him.
They did.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, you've been listening to the Life Happens Laugh Anyway podcast. I'm still comedian Tracy DeGraaf.
I'm still Cathrine.
See you next time.